Good morning, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to another edition of Breaking News. Today is Sunday, the 24th day of August, 2025. And as always, we have some important stories that have come across the wire in the last few hours. Stories that continue to support what the Bible has to say about what our world is going to look like at the time of the end of the present age before the second coming of Jesus Christ to the world and the many events it predicts to precede it. We see this every day, and this is the perspective we always do here on Breaking News. Only stories that have something to do with what Scripture has to say about what we should expect to see in our world. And day after day, we are always amazed but never surprised, are we? All right, let's get to the stories. First of all, according to the New York Post, Israel says it will begin Gaza City military takeover in mid-September. So the middle of next month is when it's going to begin, according to the New York Post story. Irish president calls for UN military intervention in Gaza. He's one of the most anti-Semitic leaders in the world, and he wants a UN military intervention in Gaza. This is from the Jerusalem Post. Jewish News Syndicate has a great article. Everybody wants a Palestinian state, except the Palestinians. And this is so true. We've talked about this before. Then finally, France says it will recognize a Palestinian state regardless of a Gaza ceasefire. That's from YNET News. We'll be talking about those. Okay, two things at the outset. Thank you so much for praying for my wife. We yesterday were in a very difficult situation when we recorded breaking news. I'd taken her to the basically the hospital in the middle of the night to go to the 24-hour pharmacy that was there because she immediately needed certain meds, antibiotics. Her chest was starting to, freeze up, as it were, whatever you want to say, towards COVID pneumonia. Well, to make a short story long, she took the antibiotics and doing so much better. So thanks for your prayers. We think we're on the mend here now. It's been a harrowing experience the whole time. And so hopefully we're over the hump here, but please keep praying. I'm feeling a lot better and still got, some residuals there, but onward we go. So again, we thank you so much for your prayers and support that way. Also, too, I have a project I've been working on the last 3 weeks that this week should be able to unveil to you. It's something I think you'll find very interesting, and it's very, very important. It's going to be seen to be very important in light of the study of last days Bible prophecy. And we'll go into some detail and explain what it is. Probably the next couple of days between having COVID and everything else going on. I've been working on it when I haven't been recording, and I'm literally amazed at what I've found. I was very surprised, and so we'll share the findings with you as we always do. So that's coming up soon, hopefully this week sometime. All right, let's get to the stories. Headline number one, Israel said it will begin Gaza City military takeover in mid-September. This is from the New York Post. It's now expected to launch its full-scale military takeover Gaza City in mid-September, 2 weeks after newly called up reservists report for duty. In anticipation of the upcoming offensive, 1 million Palestinians currently in Gaza City will be ordered to evacuate as soon as today, Sunday, Channel 12 network said, according to the Times of Israel. More than 60,000 Army reservists are set to report for duty on September 2nd after they were called up to serve in the next phase of Israel's war against Hamas. The mission will see the Israeli Defense Forces march into Gaza City in an attempt to finally topple the terror group and secure the release of the remaining hostages. Israeli Defense Minister Katz warned on Friday the gates of hell would open up to destroy Gaza City if Hamas didn't agree to the Jewish state's terms for a ceasefire. Primarily, of course, it's two things: the release of the hostages and disarmament. That's what he's threatened. Prime Minister Netanyahu and other top Israeli politicians want to fast track the offensive. We mentioned that yesterday, according to the report, which cites Tel Aviv officials who view freeing the hostages as urgent due to the increasingly dire condition in Gaza. The military, however, is still reportedly insisting on evacuating Gaza City civilians and gaining international legitimacy for the operation before it begins. They will never gain international legitimacy, military. I'm sorry. The world, no matter what Israel does, will not like that. Netanyahu is demanding all the remaining hostages be released in any deal to end the war. The network said that new talks will take place outside of Doha, Qatar, or Cairo, Egypt this time, and that discussions are underway to set a time and location after the U.S. and Israel pulled their teams from Doha last month. Israeli officials believe the looming Gaza City operation is putting significant pressure on Hamas, potentially increasing their willingness to negotiate, according to the report. Okay, again, let's emphasize this. Israel's new position for negotiations is simple. Hamas, you have to stop fighting, lay down your weapons, return the hostages, and must accept the fact that you will not rule anymore in Gaza. And we'll deal with you once you do all that. We'll send you out of the country or whatever it might be. Now, Hamas is certainly a long way from accepting any of these demands. We'll have to wait and see what eventually happens. But this is Israel's position. No temporary ceasefire, all or nothing. Okay. End the war, uh, drop your weapons, give us the hostages back, get out of Gaza, and let us take over. So, against this backdrop, we have a number of stories like the next one from anti Semitic leaders around the world. This is from the Irish president. He calls for a UN military intervention in Gaza. Isn't that interesting? It's from the Jerusalem Post. The UN General Assembly should establish a force to be put together to guarantee humanitarian access. Irish media reported Irish President Michael D. Higgins as saying yesterday, Saturday. During an interview with Ireland's public service broadcaster RTE, the president explained how the UN Charter allows for the Secretary General to send armed forces out, even if the Security Council vetoes the initiative. If a certain proportion of the Committee of the General Assembly supported, even if the Security Council used its veto to block it, the Secretary General can call for a force to be put together to guarantee humanitarian access, he said. The main thing, I think, is for a global reassertion of the importance of the General Assembly of the UN, which is a real joke here, by the way. We are in the realm of non-accountability, he told the interview. We are in an extraordinary moment where you have three members of the Israeli cabinet who are interested explicitly in illegality, but they're not worried about international law. This is so far from the truth. Again, the guy's lying about the position of the Israelis there. We've talked about that, and this has to do with Judea and Samaria, and it's very clear that they're not doing anything against international law, contrary to the way this is being framed from the world itself. Anyway, they call them lawbreakers, this and that. This man is one of Europe's biggest anti-Semites. He's known as a well-known anti-Zionist. Higgins, he's one of the first Western leaders to recognize a Palestinian state following the October 7th attacks, alongside Spain and Norway of May of last year, 2024. In the midst of Hamas killing, murdering, doing all these things, the people of Israel continue to fight. They unilaterally recognized a Palestinian state. Now, recognition is an act of a powerful political and symbolic value. It's true. There's no substance to it. Said Irish Prime Minister Simon Harris at a special news conference in Dublin over a year ago, May 2024. It's expression of our view that Palestine holds and should be able to vindicate the full rights of the state, including self-determination, self-governance, territorial integrity, and security, as well as recognizing Palestinians' obligation under international law. Now, sadly, there's many people who think like these anti-Semites about this, but our next story is going to put all this into perspective. We talked about this before. We have to keep mentioning it because the world doesn't seem to get it. And an excellent article by the Jewish News Syndicate. Everybody wants a Palestinian state, except the Palestinians. They've consistently rejected one, even if it meant living in peace with a Jewish state. Do the idea's advocates understand that their goal is Israel's distinction, or do they want to understand this? And this is so important that what this article mentions. It's back in fashion. If Palestinian statehood were a stock, its price would be soaring. In the past several weeks, France, Britain, Canada, and Australia have all said that they will recognize a Palestinian state next month at the annual meeting of the UN General Assembly. That's on top of that 147 UN member states have already recognized the, quote, state of Palestine. None of them seems to think there's something wrong with rewarding Palestinians with statehood after the Hamas-led terrorist attacks on southern Israeli communities on October 7, 2023. Indeed, that orgy of mass murder, rape, torture, kidnapping, and wanton destruction seems to have fulfilled the hopes of Hamas terrorists by leading to a revival in the interest of this scheme around the globe. The issue had gone stale for many years due to the failure of negotiations to create one, sponsored by the Obama administration, and it was because, get this, because of Palestinian intransigence. In other words, but a new spate of terrorism has suddenly made it quite popular. A lot of Americans agree with the idea. According to Reuters poll, and you don't want to believe Reuters anyway, they published this week, 58% of adult Americans favored a recognition of a Palestinian state. That figure largely hinges on party affiliation. 78% of Democrats agreeing, with only 41% of Republicans favor such recognition. Interesting. The question was paired with another one about the state of Israel. Should it be recognized? In that case, backing for Israel was higher, but though far from unanimous. Only 18% of the Democrats, 12% of the Republicans, and 21% of those who didn't identify with any party opposed the existence of the one Jewish state on the planet, a state that's already been in existence for 77 years, and still you have opposition from some in the two major parties. Now, what do Palestinians believe? And this is the key point. Well, a lot of people may think it's just fair play to give the Arabs a state if the Jews have one. The fact is, the state of Palestine will be so popular at the General Assembly, it just doesn't exist, even though it's very popular. More importantly, the Palestinian Arab population doesn't want statehood as long as it would require them to live in peace next to Israel. And this is the point we've been making for years. This has been made abundantly clear for the last century as they have rejected numerous offers of statehood dating back to 1947. The UN partition resolution, which divided up the British mandate between one state, supposedly a Jewish state, and an Arab state, Palestinian, well, Arab state at that time, not Palestinian, but still an Arab state. More recently, along with the United States, Israel offered the Palestinians a sovereign state in Gaza, a share of Jerusalem, and almost all of Judea and Samaria with territorial swaps for Israeli land. They did this in 2000, 2001, and 2008 as part of negotiations seeking a two-state solution. Each time they said no or walked away from the talks without even responding. And according to the Palestinian Center for Policy and Research, which generally tilts its results towards the so-called moderates living in Judea, Samaria, and Gaza, this is still how they feel. In the most recent poll they've conducted, they find only 40% of them favor such an entity as part of a two-state solution. Now, the Palestinian Authority, which autonomously rules most Arabs living in Judea and Samaria, has observer status at the UN, but neither it nor Hamas, which ruled Gaza from 207 to 223, qualifies for statehood under all the normal rules of international law. It doesn't control a defined territory, it doesn't have a functioning government in any meaningful sense of the term. All right, great article. Yet they keep pushing the idea. Now, for a biblical perspective, we want you to see our book, 25 Signs. We're near the end, appendices 5 and 6. Appendix 5 is the biblical answer as to the ownership of the promised land. Appendix 6, who are the Palestinians? This book, like all our materials, is a free download from our website, Educating Our World, and this is under the heading of Bible Prophecy. Now, finally, to the icing on the cake, we have this. Headline number 4. France says it will recognize Palestinian state regardless of a Gaza ceasefire. Officials said Paris will move forward with recognizing a Palestinian state at the UN General Assembly in September, stressing President Macron's decision is final and not contingent on an Israeli-Hamas ceasefire. And this is going to be what they will do. He tends to formally recognize this next month at UN General Assembly. And the comments from officials underline Israel cannot influence the French decisions. Now, what's interesting, he says there must be an immediate ceasefire, including the release of all the hostages and massive humanitarian assistance. Well, again, you need to talk to Hamas there. It's not Israel's holding the hostages. He said establishing and guaranteeing a Palestinian state is vital for contributing security in the Middle East. Well, sadly, the Palestinian side doesn't want one. They don't want to live in peace with Israel. Now, what's interesting here is became a part of a wider European push that began July 23rd, when Macron met the German president Merz to discuss the crisis. At that meeting, and here's the key, Macron acknowledged he was under enormous domestic pressure and hinted he would announce recognition of a Palestinian state at the UN in late September. Well, there you have it. The domestic pressure in France is you must do this. And this comes from the people there. And remember, we have all these migrants that have come into France, come into the UK, come into Germany, especially in these other countries that are basically dictating the terms of where the country is moving, anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian. So even though the Palestinians don't want a state next to Israel, the world continues to push for it. This is the textbook definition of insanity. Now, so many things up in the air right now. As always, we'll keep you posted for the events as they unfold. And again, we thank you so much for your prayers for us, for our health, and we'll keep you posted with all this as events warrant. I'm Don Stewart. Thanks for watching. Until next time, as always, may the Lord richly, richly bless.